Hello class, in today's video we're going to be going over depreciation. The learning intention of this video is we're going to develop an understanding of what flat rate depreciation is, and we're also going to understand what is that as opposed to reducing balance depreciation. And the last thing we're going to look at is how do we actually calculate the final value of a depreciated product. First thing that I want to talk about is the word depreciation, okay? So depreciation just means that the item has just gone down in its price value after it has actually been purchased. So anything that involves a reduction is what we refer to as a depreciation. We often see things depreciate over time. So for instance, a most common example is cars. So when you go to a dealer the moment you buy the car, that car instantly depreciates. It will depreciate then, and it also will depreciate over time as well, okay? There are other words that I need you to understand in today's lesson as well. So the original price of an item is called the purchase price. So just think of the purchase price being the initial price, or the price that the user or the consumer has actually bought it for. Whereas the book price is essentially the price of an item at any given time, okay? So let's just say that you purchased a new car at a dealer, and if I was asking you how much is the car worth after 4 years, that's what I mean by the book price. The book price is the price of the car after 4 years, given that's depreciated in terms of value. So one of the ways that we can actually represent this relationship between the book price, purchase price, as well as depreciation is by the following formula over here. So the book price, meaning the price of the product at any time, is equal to the purchase price. And think of, again, the purchase price being the initial price. So it's the initial price minus by the depreciation, okay? Now there's also another word that I need you to understand, and that word over here is the scrap value, or this might also be referred to as the salvage value as well. These two terms can be used interchangeably, and it's the value that an item is said to have at the end of its useful life. So what do I mean by useful life? Useful life just means that it still retains value. It can you can still make some profit out of that, but after this particular scrap value, it's the company doesn't actually make any profit at all, so it's no point actually continuing to make this particular product. So for instance, let's just say, obviously I'll give you like a severe example, but obviously people don't want to like use a car that's say 30 years old, because, or not that, but the company doesn't plan to make a car that was from 30 years ago, because it might be more expensive to create that particular product than it is currently worth at the moment, okay? So it might, like say, cost the company $10,000 to make the car, but at the moment a 30-year-old car will only cost you about like $200, since it's so outdated. So in that case over here, that car is considered to be useless, and therefore what we say as the scrap value or the salvage price, that's a price that's a company can still make some decent profit, but after that point over there, companies don't actually make any profits anymore, so there's no point continuing to make that product, so they either recycle it or they just sell it out at a really dirt cheap price just to get rid of it in this case. Alright guys, what you need to know now is that there are two different types of depreciation, okay? And this is modeled by these graphs down below. There's one that's referred to as the flat rate depreciation, as given by its name, as you can see, this is modeled by a straight line, whereas a reducing balance depreciation kind of resembles a curve, and it kind of curves down. So initially it has a very steep depreciation, but as the years go by, what happens is that it depreciates less and less and less each time, whereas as you can see over here, this one goes down by a fixed amount every single time. So what I'm going to be talking to you guys about in more detail now is what is flat rate depreciation. So a flat rate depreciation is where the item loses the same amount each year, and this could be a fixed amount. So it could be $300 per year, it could be $500 per year. It will just depend on the actual product itself, but it could also be expressed as a percentage of the original price per year as well. So in this case, because it's of the original price, this is obviously going to be like the initial principal in this case. So it's kind of same thing as simple interest, but just the reverse of it, okay? So if you look over here, in this case, at 2 years, the price is worth this item over here is worth $4,000, and at 4 years, this particular item is now worth $3,000. In this case over here, notice that from year 2 to year 4, this over here is gone down by $1,000. But if I was trying to calculate how much did it go down per year, we can easily see that this has gone down $500 per year, and we can kind of see that trend over here. Okay. So what I'm trying to show you guys is that in a flat rate depreciation, you will always see a steady decline, and this is going to be modeled by a straight line. And because it's modeled by a straight line, we often say that flat rate depreciation is pretty much like simple interest in reverse in this case over here. And because it's the same thing essentially as simple interest but in reverse, we actually use the exact same formula to calculate depreciation, or flat rate depreciation at the very least. So in this case of it can be modeled by this particular formula, and notice how the formula of depreciation for flat rate is the same thing as for simple interest, because you go down or up by the exact same amount or rate every single time. Okay, so therefore, because we know how to calculate now the formula for flat rate depreciation, we can therefore calculate the book price, meaning the price of any product after whatever years it is, given that we know that the initial price, the purchase price, as well as the principal. Okay, so let's look at some examples over here so that you have a better understanding. So the first example reads, a computer system costs $9,500 to buy and decreases in value by 10% of the purchase price each year. So again, this is just dependent on the purchase price, meaning the principal in this case. Part A reads, what is the amount of the depreciation after 4 years? So pretty much the question is asking you how much did it go by in total after 4 years. So again, because flat rate depreciation uses the exact same formula as simple interest, we're going to be using this formula over here. Now, your principal over here is just going to be the amount of the actual product itself, so the initial amount. So therefore, that's going to be 9,500. Your interest rate is 10%, and your T in this case is going to be 4 years. So substitute this into the formula, and therefore you're going to get an answer of $3,800. So this is going to be the answer for part A. So it's gone down by $3,800 in total after 4 years. Part B reads, find its book value after 4 years, meaning what is the price of the actual computer after 4 years, given that's depreciated. So in this case of here, remember how I told you that the book value can be determined by just going the purchase price subtract by the depreciation. So therefore, if you guys did this, just go 9,500 subtract by 3,800. Therefore, you're going to get an answer of $5,700. So that's the first example. Let's now look at another example. So for example number 2, it reads, a car factory buys some new machinery for its production line. The machinery costs $25,000 and it depreciates in value at 18% per year based on the flat rate method. The lifetime of the machinery is 4 years, meaning that it's relatively useful for the company to make a profit for 4 years, and after that they make no profit at all, so they will therefore discontinue the model in this case over here. Part A wants you to calculate, there's a typo, calculate the book value of the machinery after 2 years. So in this case over here, in order to calculate the book value, remember we need to calculate what the depreciation is. So let's calculate the depreciation after 2 years, okay? So in this case, we're using the exact same formula, but we're going to substitute T being equal to 2 in this case, P being the initial price of the actual machinery, and the interest rate is 18%. Substitute this in, therefore you're going to get a depreciation value of 9,000. So it goes down by 9,000 after 2 years. To now calculate the book value, it's just going to be the purchase price minus 9,000. So 25,000 minus 9,000 is therefore going to give you $16,000. So that's the answer for part A. Now to answer part B, what is the scrap value of the machinery? Pretty much it's asking what is the value of the particular machinery when it's still considered to be useful, okay, at the last stage of its, you can say, lifeline. So therefore, find out what is the depreciation value after 4 years. So again, use a simple interest formula, but in this time, instead of using 2, we're using 4 as T. And if you do this, it's therefore gone down by 18,000 after 4 years. In this case, what we need to do is just subtract that from 25,000. Therefore, you're going to get an answer of $7,000. All right, guys, what I'd like you to do right now is I want you to have a go at answering this question over here. Give yourself 5 minutes and then compare your answers with my answers. Now, if you guys answer this successfully, okay, what we're doing again is still using the depreciation formula. So in this case, we're substituting 37,500 as our principal. Your interest rate is 12% and your time is 5 years. So substitute that's in, so therefore it's gone down by $22,500. So in this case, to find the book value, we just subtract that from 37,500. And if you did this successfully, then you should get an answer of $15,000. So that's the price of the car after 5 years. What we're going to be looking at now is something referred to as the reducing balance depreciation. And most questions often, and this is also going to be asked in your post-test as well as CAT, often looks at the reducing balance depreciation, okay? So the reducing balance depreciation is when the value of an item decreases by a different amount each year. So remember, flat rate it goes down by the same amount, so that's why it's flat. Reducing balance is always going to be different, okay? And the rate at which it goes down by is going to be dependent on the current book value, okay? So it's going to be the percentage of the current book value, and because it's dependent on the current book value, it's very similar to compound interest, but in reverse. And this is the formula down below that you could actually calculate the final value of the final reduced value of the actual item or product after n years. So in this case of here, the letter n just represents the years. P still represents your principal or your purchase price, and R in this case represents your interest rate, but your interest rate in decimals, okay? So make sure you note this down. All right, so over here, I don't really want you to be copying anything down, but I just want you to be looking at this example just so you have a better understanding. So let's just say that a van over here costs $30,000. Now look, after every successive year, okay, notice that it depreciates by a different amount. It's in this case of here, it went down by 4,500, but within this second year, so from the start of the first year to the end of the second year, this down goes down by a different amount, and this is also evident in from year 2 to year 3. And as I said earlier on, for reducing balance, remember the graph was quite steep. It depreciates quite steeply at the beginning, but as years go by, it goes down less and lesser each time. And that's also evident in this example over here as well. So that's what I mean by for reducing balance depreciation, the item depreciates by a different amount in each successive year. And this is the same thing for compound interest, but compound interest obviously increases. This one decreases, okay? Again, don't copy anything down over here, but I just want to show you guys over here that the amount of depreciation kind of declines over time, and that's just evident in this particular table over here. Now we're going to go through some examples just so that you have a better understanding of how you could actually apply the formula for reducing balance depreciation. So this question reads, a computer system costs $9,500 to buy, and there's a typo here, but it says it should be decreases in value by 20% each year, okay? So what is the book value of the computer after 4 years? So in this case here, we're going to be using this value. Now this V over here tells you the book value, so it already tells you the final amount. So all we're doing is just substituting these values into the formula. Your P in this case is going to be 9,500. Your R is going to be 20% converted into a decimal, so that's going to be 0.20, and your N represents the year, so it's going to be 4. So if you put this in your calculator, what you should get as an answer is going to be $3,891.20. So this tells you the book value, but if you wanted to calculate what is the depreciation, then what you would do is you subtract 9,500 to $3,891.20, and that will tell you how much it's gone down by. So and that's pretty much what the question for part B is saying. I should have read that earlier on. So part B says, by how much has the value of the computer depreciated over 4 years? So therefore, in this case over here, this is pretty much this the formula I showed you earlier on, but it's just rearranged. So before I showed you that book value is equal to the purchase price minus depreciation. So in this case over here, this is just the same formula, but just rearranged to calculate the depreciation. So the depreciation is going to be the purchase price minus the book price. In this case, it's going to go down by $5,608.80. Let's look at one more example over here. So example 2 reads, a company bought a van that had a value of $12,000. Each year, the value of the car depreciates by 25%. Work out the value of the van at the end of 3 years. Okay, so in this case of here, use the same formula. Okay, so substitute 12,000 into P, use 25%, convert it into a decimal, so that's going to be 0.25, and N is going to equal to 3 in this case over here. Substitute this into the formula, and therefore you're going to get an answer of $5,062.50. Pretty straightforward. Very last example before I get you to do a check for understanding questions and then some review questions afterwards. So in this case over here, you've got the principal, okay, and you also got the depreciation rate. You want to find out the book value after 5 years. So in this case over here, substitute the values in. This is 750 million, so therefore there are 6 zeros in a million, so just add an extra 6 zeros. In this case, I've converted 12.5% into a decimal, and I've substituted the years 5 over here as the exponent. If you put this successfully into a calculator, then you're going to get this answer over here. But in this case over here, the question wants you to correct it to the nearest $1 million. So in this case over here, this is the place value for $1 million. So we need to round up this digit over here. So in this case, we'll round up to 5 since the next number is a 6. So therefore, this is going to be your final answer once we've corrected it to the nearest $1 million. Now, to answer part B, part B wants you to calculate how many years will it take for the value of the jumbo jet to fall below $100 million. Now, in this case over here, there's actually 2 ways or 2 strategies that you could actually use to get the final answer. The first way is just pretty much keep on trial and erroring and repeat this process until you're going to get an answer that is below 100 billion, or you could actually use the CAS calculator, okay? And the CAS calculator method is going to be a lot more faster, and there's a way that you actually need to write it down. So in this case over here, this is what you would need to input directly into the CAS calculator. So you need to type in solve, then bracket. Now this over here just represents your principal or your purchase price, and I'm doing everything the same, but what I'm trying to solve is for N. So I'll leave N as N in this case of here, and to tell or instruct the CAS calculator that I'm solving for N, that's why I need to have a comma followed by an N afterwards. And once you close that and hit the enter button, then you're going to get an answer of 15.0894 years. Okay, so the calculator tells you at this price of at this number of years, or at this number, this will therefore equal to an answer of $100 million. Because the question wants you to identify how many years will it take for it to fall below, you need to therefore round up your answer. So therefore, it's going to take 16 years, because at 15 years, 15.0894 years, the price of the jet is exactly 100 million. So obviously, after that, it will therefore be lower than that. So that 16 years should be the answer. So this is a more complex example. What I'd like you to do now is have a go of answering this question over here. So give yourself 5 minutes and then go compare your answers with my answers. If you guys have done this successfully, then this is what you guys should have got as your answer. You should have got $5,120. If you guys can do this, then you've got yourself a really good understanding of this particular topic over here. Just to summarize this particular video over here, we talked about 2 different types of depreciation. There was the straight line method, also known as the flat rate depreciation, which is characterized by going down or reducing the value of the part at the exact same rate or by a constant amount each time. Whereas the reducing balance method is where it kind of goes down by a different amount per year, with it decreasing a lot within the initial year, but obviously this will gradually decrease over the years though. Alright guys, now what I want you to do now is I want you to answer some review questions, but before then, I do want to point out that it is quite unclear of whether you are sometimes going to be looking at a problem that involves either flat rate or reducing, because the question doesn't actually use these specific words sometimes. Because it's a bit ambiguous as to which type of depreciation is involved, I'm going to give you a little hint over here. So if the question only mentions the word depreciation, so there's no word that says reducing balance, or there's no words that says flat rate, in this case of here, it's always assumed that it's going to be reducing balance depreciation, because that's what's generally used in the real world. However, if the question does explicitly say flat rate depreciation, or if the question says it depreciates at a whatever percentage of its purchase price, meaning it's only dependent on its purchase price, that means it goes down by the same rate. So therefore, this is going to be a flat rate depreciation. So just keep in mind this particular, these two dot points over here, so that you understand whether you're using the reducing balance formula or whether you're using the flat rate depreciation formula instead. So on this slide over here, I've got questions that are just related to reducing balance depreciation. And notice in this case over here, it doesn't really say anything about flat rate or reducing balance. So in this case over here, as I said, this is all related to reducing balance because it doesn't say anything else other than that at all. So always assume in these cases over here that it's reducing balance. And if you've done this successfully, then these are the answers over here. I also have questions over here for the flat rate depreciation, okay? And in this case over here, you know it's flat rate because it tells you in this case, this goes down by the same amount, $3,040 every single year. For question 3, it says 10% of its purchase price each year because it's depending on its principal or purchase price. This is an example of flat rate as well. And answer these 2 questions as well. And these are the answers over here. This is the end of today's video. Hopefully this video helped you out. I'll see you guys again in the next video. Bye.